Hi, this is Elizabeth with Mama Can Do It, and today I am going to be doing a tutorial on the baby jumpsuit pattern. And the first step to doing this design is going to be to put your patterned pieces together. So you can see here I have my front body piece, and it looks like the whole piece here. And I also have the back body piece, and this is literally all it is because the back body is really the same size as the front body. The only difference is the neckline. So what I did was I made this little piece just like that, and then I'm just going to line up my sleeve here like this, and then I'm going to tape the piece into place right here, right on top of my front body piece, like you can see this. Now, when I want to cut my back body piece, I keep this up. When I want to cut my front body piece, I'll flip it down, and I'll actually just fold it like this, just so that it doesn't get in the way of the crotch area when I do that. So that's the first step. I am also going to be doing a short sleeve, so I only cut out the short sleeve pattern, and I also cut out the cloth diaper extender piece. And all right, let's get started. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut out, and I have my front piece here. I have my back piece here, each of my sleeves, and this is going to be my neck binding, and so I cut it 2 inches, and I'm making the 6 to 12 month size, so I think it's 2 by 12 and a half maybe. And then this is the cloth diaper extender, and that's going to go in this little spot here. If you look at a set of jammies for your little one, you can kind of see how that extends the crotch area. So now what I'm going to do, oh, and I also wanted to mention that this is the neck binding, and it was just from a t-shirt, and when you do it, you want to cut against the grain. So when I pull it like this, it's going to stretch. And see how it kind of rolled in like that? If it does that, then you know you've cut it the right direction. So the grain, which means basically like if you look really close at the lines in the fabric, they're going to be going this direction. And so then the stretch will go this direction. And that's the same way that you cut the sleeves. The stretch goes in this direction. And that's really important for how the sleeves lay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pattern piece here, and I'm going to do this one right on top of this so that you can see really well. So here's my pattern piece, and I want to be able to cut here because we are actually going to make something that the snaps will be able to snap into and be able to lay flat at the same time. And then on the back side, there's actually going to be a flap, so that way there's plenty of leg area or leg room. And so to do that, let me grab my other scissors actually. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pattern piece here, and I'm just going to eyeball it, but I'm going to measure out probably about 2 inches, about the same width as your neck piece, and I am going to cut it off, and it's 2 inches from this edge here. It does not have to be perfect, but I mean definitely try to get it about 2 inches. Okay, so now you can see, kind of pretend with me that this is going to be a piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this as the fold line, and I'm going to cut 3 of these. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got all 3 of my leg flaps, I'm going to call them, cut out. And now what we're going to do before we do anything else is attach 2 of them. So you can see this came from a t-shirt, and I don't want that to show. So I'm actually going to keep this on the outside and put the good sides together because we're going to sew them together and then turn it right side out. So I'm going to just lay this on here. And then this side is good too, because see how this side has a bit of print? I don't want that to show. So when I'm done and flip it to the right side, then that will be hidden. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a 3/8 inch of a seam allowance for the entire tutorial. I don't think I'm going to specify anything else, but you'll see it in the tutorial if I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my serger because I love using my serger with knits, but you can also use a regular sewing machine with a zigzag stitch or an elastic stitch. That works really well. And do the outside edge of this, from this corner all the way over to this corner. Oh, and something else I want to mention is if you are using a regular sewing machine, sometimes I have trouble with knits with my sewing machine, and I love my walking foot. It just changes everything. So I'm going to go sew this right now, leave this one setting aside. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've serged all the way around this edge here, and so now what I'm actually going to do is turn it right side out. And it's easier too if you press it with an iron, but just kind of adjust it so that way you can turn this right side out like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it with an iron like this, and then I'm going to save it for later for another step. And I'm just going to put this one with it. And you can see this also came from the t-shirt. It's got a side that I don't necessarily want to show. But we will use that later and hide that and use that for our leg flaps. Alright, moving on. Okay, so I've decided I'm actually not going to put it away for later. I'm going to put my cloth diaper extender onto this. And so that way if I mess anything up, with my serger, because if you mess up something with your serger, it is impossible to tear stitches out. So I'm going to do it on this instead of the main piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little ruler that I have here, and I'm going to take it to the 3-inch mark. And then I'm going to spread this open like this so it kind of looks like it's flat. And from the middle, so you might even want to mark the middle. Here's the middle. So from the middle, I am going to mark 3 inches down, so about here. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you want it to be pretty close. So here is 3 inches on this side. And then I'm going to mark 3 inches on the other side, just so I have a good idea of where I'm going to be at here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is this is my cloth diaper extender, and I am going to sew it onto this. I'm going to sew it with the right sides together, and I'm going to start at one of these points here. So you can see it's kind of a football shape, and so I'm going to start at this pointy point, and I'm going to put it right here where there is the pin. And then I should mark up, actually, the center of this, just so that I know where it is. I guess you could pin it the whole way, too, but I'm not going to. So start here, and then you're going to slowly sew until this is directly in the center, right here. You know, maybe I will pin it. And I'm going to start with the center. And then this side, too. So now what I'm going to do, it's kind of an awkward shape now that it's pinned, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing here at the corner, at that pointy corner, and then I'm going to sew it on all the way to the other pointy corner. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have sewed the cloth diaper extender into the corner piece here of the leg flap. I had pinned it on, and I started here and I sewed here. I did not use a serger for this. I did use my sewing machine, and again I used a 3/8 inch of a seam allowance all the way around. Now I left this part open here because we're going to attach it to the the jumpsuit here in a little bit. So let's move on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is prepare the neckline. If you look at any t-shirt that you have in your drawer, that is the type of neckline or binding that we're going to do. So this is the right side, and this is the wrong side. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it, fold it in half, and put the ends together. And I'm going to sew this together inside out. I'll do that. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I've sewed it right side out, it's basically a tube. Put your hand through it. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold it in half to hide this raw edge, and to be about, it'll be about an inch then, if you cut it 2 inches like I had suggested. If you cut it longer, it will make a turtleneck or a mock turtleneck. Okay, so now what I have here is the prepared neckband. So I actually think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to run this through my serger just to hold it together. It'll make attaching it to the garment much easier. And basically what I just want to do is close up this gap here. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that I did sew this neckband. So now the actual seam is hidden. You can still kind of see it there when I tug on it. I serged it. If you don't have a serger but you still want to connect it, go ahead and use a zigzag stitch because you want this to be able to stretch some when you, quite a bit when you attach it to the garment. So now the next step is we're going to actually connect the shoulders together of the garment, and we're going to do that by putting the right sides together. I'll be right back. Okay, so what I have done is I had placed the front piece with the back piece of the jumpsuit, and I just attached the shoulders together with my serger, or you could do that with a regular sewing machine and a zigzag stitch. I don't think I need to say that anymore for this tutorial because I think you get the point that those things can go interchangeably. Also make sure you're using the 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now what we're going to do is we're going to measure this neckline, and we're going to do that without measuring anything. So we're just going to lay it out flat like this. And I have a piece of jute here, but you could use any type of string that you want. And I'm just going to just kind of follow along the inside edge of this, just like this, until I get to the other side, and then cut it off. And this is the length of my neckline. So then what I'll do is I'll fold this in half, and I will put a pin in it, which of course I don't have any pins over here. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in it right here. And then I am going to fold this in half again so I can find the quarter marks. You want to quarter it when you are doing it. So I'm just going to put a little pin in each of those. Okay, so we have this neckline measured out. Now, we need to quarter this. So I like to put that seam that I had made, can you see it right there? I like to put that seam in the very back, so that way it's easy for anybody to put on. So that is going to be one of my, that's going to be my center. So I'm just going to make sure it's in my center by folding it in half and then folding it in half again. And it is. So this I'm going to put a pin in. The front I'm going to put a pin in, which is directly on the other side of that seam. And then each of these. Okay, so now you have your neckline quartered, and you also have your garment quartered on the neckline. See, it's got the 4 spots pinned now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just make a mark where we want the quarters to be. So I know this is the back, you can tell because it's not quite as deep as the front. And so I want the back to be a center point. So I'm going to attach a pin take it right out of the thing and attach it there. Then I'm going to go along the line, and you can see it never lines up. Very, very rarely will it line up with the shoulder seam allowance. And then I'll go along here. Okay, and then that's the center of the... Okay, so here I've got the center here and the back. So that is how you figure out where the quarters are of your neckline. Now, I have the wrong side facing up. And I want this to go in here, but we have to pin it in just so that way that our new seam is going to be hidden. So basically what we're going to do is this is going to be facing up as well. This this seam that we had, or not seam, but basically where we had serged it together on the raw edges, we want that to be pointed upward. Okay, so now I want this seam to be in the back, kind of like a tag sort of deal. And so I'm actually going to put it underneath, so that way the right sides are together, and I'm going to attach it at that center point in the back. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the next quarter mark, which is right here. And I'm going to do this too. It's not going to line up, or rather it will line up perfectly, but it's going to be kind of funny because this neckline of your garment is actually quite a bit bigger than your neck binding. And that's on purpose, so that way it'll lay flat after you sew it. So I'm just going to go through here, attaching it like this at each of the quarter marks. Now we do it by quarter because, and I'll show you here in a second, let me get this extra pin out. We do it by quarter because I'm going to start sewing here. Actually, it'd be like this. I'm going to start sewing here, but while I'm sewing, I'm going to be pulling. So that way this inside binding, this purple binding, is going to lay, it will be stretched as I sew. So like this. Because when we get done sewing, we want this to lay flat against the body. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to serge it together. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have serged this neckline right onto the garment. So this is the wrong side, and you can see how I had just attached it on like that. And remember, you have to really tug it while you're sewing it. And so sometimes, depending on your machine, like my serger, I don't have to do this as much, but on my sewing machine I do, where I have to pull it behind with my left hand. I have to hold it while I'm feeding it through. Otherwise, it'll just get hung up here because I'm pulling on the neckline so much. Okay, so now you can flip it over. And you're just going to observe how it is, and it's actually quite perfect. But sometimes it's not so perfect. Sometimes it kind of gets all wrinkly, and it looks really bad around where you've sewed it together. And the easiest way that you can take care of that is by simply running an iron over it. It is not a temporary fix. It permanently will fix it. It will just take those wrinkles right out. But I don't actually have that today. That looks really nice. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach the sleeves. And we are going to lay it out flat with the right side facing up, just like this. And I have my sleeve here, and this is the wrong side facing up now. The right side is underneath, and so I'm going to put the right sides together like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it here, but you can see that the sleeve is actually the backwards direction, kind of like that cloth diaper extender is. So the easiest way that I have found to do a sleeve is just by taking it a little bit at a time, but the first step is to find the center of the shoulder. So I have it folded in half here. I don't know if you can see, there we go. I have it folded in half here, and this is the top of the shoulder, and so I'm just going to put a pin there, so that way I got that in the center, and then I'm going to flip it back over, right sides together, and I'm going to put that directly on the seam, and I'm going to pin it into place. Now, I have a couple tutorials where I will actually pin the whole way, and I don't like to do that. I like to either start in the center and start sewing in the center and go down until the other end, or just by having this pin in the center, it can kind of give me a little bit of an idea when I start here to make sure that I'm not stretching the fabric too much or feeding it through unevenly. And again, if you're using your sewing machine and you're using knits, the walking foot is fantastic. So I'm going to go attach this. I'm probably going to start in the center and sew down to this corner, and then start in the center and sew down to this corner. The whole time you're not really going to adjust this fabric. You're just going to sew slowly, and you're just going to adjust it like this as you're sewing until it's attached. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so I have both of my sleeves attached now, and that went really good. And so now, see how it's still upside down, my garment is. I just want to flip my sleeve edge over between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. I mean, it depends on how short you want your sleeve to be. I will probably do mine, this is about 5/8, and I just think that that looks just perfect for what I'm doing today. So I'm going to flip that over, and then I'm going to just sew along this inner edge of the sleeve, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to use an elastic stitch with a contrasting thread. I've got black thread in there right now, and I think that will just look really pretty. And my elastic stitch will actually kind of make almost like a scallop type of a look, and it's really pretty. So I'm going to go and do that. Okay, so I went ahead and did the sleeves, so now they are hemmed, and it's super pretty. I don't know if you can see that. I just love that scallop look. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to work on, let's work on the back first. So I'm going to turn it right side out. Or right side up rather, and I'm going to make sure it's the back, because remember we had put the seam of the neck in the back, so that's right there, so I can see that. And we're going to work on the legs. So we had set apart that flap earlier, so let me grab that. Here we are. And remember, we have the cloth diaper extender right here. So now what we're going to do is, the cloth diaper extender has somewhat of a point right here, the center point. We're going to grab that center point, we're going to put it right at the center of the back piece here, with the right sides together, remember. So all of my stitching is going to be up on this side, so this is actually correct. All right, so then what we're going to do is we are going to go down the side like this, and we're going to pin it into place. Trying not to stretch it all the way down the leg. Okay, so I have this side pinned. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pin this side the same way with the right sides together, and then I will go sew that. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have it sewn on. So this is the back piece, sewn on to the inner legs here. And because of that cloth diaper extender, and you could really do that with all of them, I think it fits much better even without cloth diapers. But I call it the cloth diaper extender because frankly you absolutely can't use cloth and it look good without it. So now we are going to move over to the other side. And this is going to be the front side. And we are going to lay it flat like this. And then I am going to take that extra flap that I had cut from before. And remember, I don't like this print here, so I am going to want that hidden, so that I'm going to consider that the wrong side. So I'm going to put the right sides together and I'm going to lay it on top of this leg opening like this. Get this opened up all the way like that. And now I'm going to sew all along here. Remember, you've got to use a serger or a zigzag stitch because it needs to stretch. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have sewn here on the inside of the legs. So I'm going to turn it over. So this is going to be the wrong side facing up now. And I'm going to flip that flap around to hide the seam like this. And then I'm going to press it with my iron. And then I'm going to sew about 1 inch from the edge all the way around. And I might decide to do even 1 inch. I'll probably do the inch all the way around and about 1.5 inches. And so there will be just a little bit extra of a flap, and then I can trim that off. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have gone ahead and sewn on this inside flap on the front piece, and then I trimmed off the excess. Now I went ahead and put the front piece and the back piece together. Remember, it's connected at the shoulders anyways, so just flipped it around. And what we're going to do now is, starting probably at the sleeve, line that up and then sew all the way down to the ankles here on both this side and this side. Okay, so I have sewn all along the sides, so it is one piece now. And so now the only thing we have left to do is the bottom and the snaps. So on the bottom, what I like to do is still inside out. I just want to take it like this, so that way it's just kind of facing up like that, each leg individually. And then I'm going to fold this up about 1 inch. And there's a little bit of a curve to it, so it's going to take a little bit of being ginger with it, so that way you can keep the curve intact. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and I'm going to sew this on, or this hem in place, very similarly to how I had sewn the sleeve hem into place. By pressing it and then sewing about 1/8 of an inch from this inside edge here. So I'm going to go do that with both of the legs. Okay, so I have both of the legs all hemmed now. And so now the last step is going to be to add the snaps. I have a bajillion diaper snaps, and so that's what I'm actually going to be putting on this, but you could use metal snaps if you want. So what you're going to do is you're going to lay the back half, or I'm sorry, the back leg flap, let me get a little bit more centered here, flat. I don't know if you can see that or not, but back here I'm laying it flat in there. And then this one we're going to lay flat as well. So that way they are just directly on top of each other. And then I'm going to take my fabric marking pencil. I've got a white one for this dark, and it's probably going to be harder for you to see. So let me just zoom in a little bit. Oops, wrong way. So I've got my fabric marking pencil, the white one, and I am going to use my little ruler a little bit. I'm going to put the first mark for a snap about right on this 1-inch hem. I hope that you can see that in there. Then I'm going to take about every 2 inches and I'm going to make another mark. When I start getting toward the crotch area, I need to make a decision how I want to do it. A lot of times when I have put one in the center, I've not liked it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go 2 inches from here and then just leave the center open and not worry about try to put one in the center. So actually I'll probably put it right here so that we're about even, like this. Okay, now what I want to do is we laid it nice and on here, and so what I want to do is just kind of move it over to the side just the slightest bit and just transfer the same marking to here, the bottom one, so that way I can easily have my snaps lining up. Move this aside just a little bit. So now, if you see here, they are where they will match, and then I'm going to put, I want this to fold inward and come and snap underneath it like this. So I'm going to put the snap on this side, and I'll put the snap on the bottom side of that. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, so I've added snaps to the leg area of the garment. Now the front, you can see that all you can see is the back caps, and then the back side will flip over and snap like that. So that way the only snap that you'll actually see once it's on the baby is the front here, because the back is flipped inside. So there you are. Beautiful jumpsuit, and thanks for joining me.